We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Welcome to Supernatural Hour. I am Raven.
I'm Tim.
And
Chad.
Excellent. Our topic today is the Cecil Hotel. And if you've never heard of the Cecil Hotel, you need to, first of all, listen to our podcast because it's fascinating. But then I would suggest you watch some YouTube videos because this is a very, very interesting, very storied, very, very haunted place for lots of reasons. So the Cecil Hotel was, and I'm getting a little, doing my research, a little bit of conflicting information. It was either built in 1927 or 1925. But
I got 24.
You got see? Yeah, no one knows when this place was built. I'm sure someone does, but anyway, mid to early 1920s. It was actually built by a very famous, bigwig hotelier, and he spent $1 million, and $1 million in the 1920s was a
real money.
lot of money.
Good. I was worried that it might have been fake money back then.
It was real money back then.
I think one of the documentaries I was watching this morning said it was about $10 to $15 million current.
Yeah, I mean and if you look at pictures of it, back in the heyday, I mean, it had the envision the Titanic, in the movie, the big opulent staircase, palm trees,
Art Deco, very cool.
I mean, this was a big to-do. This place was built not for just your average Joe. This was built for celebrities and wealthy businessmen and the social elites. This was a fancy place.
Yeah, it was
700 rooms. Yeah,
it was a destination hotel. It's not, hey, we're going to LA. What hotels are available? It's, we are going to the Cecil Hotel. You went to go there. But sadly, after they built it, guess what happened? 1920s.
1929 happened.
The Depression hits, and that area of LA became known as Skid Row, and the hotel tanked. And the hotel became more a hangout for drug dealers and prostitution and the ill-reputable folks. So, and I didn't write down the fellow's name that built it, but his dream, boom, literally overnight, kind of imploded.
William Banks Hanner.
Yes. I have Hanners in my line. I wonder if I'm related.
It's possible. You should do interest and words.
Words are hard.
Yep. So are colors. They smell funny. Ancestry.com.
I should check that out.
Unless you don't do genealogy. I mean, genealogy alone is fascinating. You learn a lot of cool stuff about your history.
You really do know. We do genealogy. So I'll have to look them up. See if
I'm going to have to post some of these pictures on Facebook because the lobby of the Cecil Hotel looks freaking amazing.
It does. I mean, it's marble, folks. It's not just
stained glass windows. That's a really cool staircase.
All the Art Deco. The marble flooring's got inlay. It's beautiful. At least it originally was.
Yeah, Raven. When we were watching some of the documentaries on it, she's like, "I was thinking it was going to be like a dumpy place."
Looking at pictures of it now, or video and stuff, the outside kind of does look like a dumpy place, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Well, they've since rebranded it. I think they rebranded it in 2011. It still says Cecil Hotel on it, but it's like the old sign. And now it's called Stay on Main. We'll get into the good stuff. We're building up to it. Be patient.
Sorry, I was getting a little too excited.
And they call it the Stay on Main now. You can go there. It might be closed. I know that they're doing like $110 million renovation on it. And they're going to make it into apartments. But considering the history there, which we're getting to after a big build-up.
Well, it's because of the history they changed it. They wanted to separate themselves from the haunted history that is the Cecil Hotel.
But I'm wondering if you buy an apartment there, they're going to have a lot of wisps people in California and ghost hunters going and cleansing stuff like crazy.
Maybe.
So, why? In 1931, as far as I can find, is the first death, and it was a fellow by the name of W.K. Norton. He was 46 years old, and he actually checked in under an alias, and they found him dead from taking poison capsules in his room. So that kind of started the whole downward spiral of this hotel. So they decided that there was about 16, roughly, give or take, that they know of, accidents, murders, suicides, and then some that were just unknown. They just found people that were dead, and they don't know if it was... I mean, obviously it's going to be one of those three, but they don't know exactly what it was.
Some of the other people that they found dead, I guess in 1934, there was an Army sergeant named Lewis D. Borden who had cut his own throat.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And then there was,
how you can do that.
About 4 years later, there was someone named Roy Thompson, who was also in the Marine. He was a Marine Corps. He jumped from the top of the Cecil, and they found him on the skylight of a building next door.
Next door, yeah. And the Cecil Hotel, actually, it's famous for, I think it became a destination hotel for people that wanted to jump to their death. Because a lady named Helen Gurney in 1954 jumped. Julia Moore jumped in 1962. And then, I hate to say this is my favorite, because jumping to your death is a terrible thing. But as far as story goes, the most interesting story is a gal named Pauline Otten, also in 1962. She had a kind of a falling out with her husband, and she decided to end it by jumping, and she actually fell on and killed a pedestrian. And when police first arrived on scene, they thought that maybe they had jumped together in kind of a suicide pact. But the pedestrian still had his shoes on, and they determined that had he actually jumped, his shoes probably would have fallen off, and I don't know the physics behind that.
They're saying the impact from when he hit the ground would have caused his shoes to fly off.
Okay, that makes sense.
Is what I heard. But there's also another crazy story that happened before all of that. In 1944, there was a 19-year-old named Dorothy Jean Purcell. She woke up in the middle of the night, and she was having stomach pains. She was staying with her, I think it was her boyfriend or her friend, I don't know who it was. His name was Ben Levine. She ended up going to the bathroom because she didn't want to wake him up. And when she went in there, she ended up giving birth to a baby boy.
Yeah, she had no idea she was pregnant.
Yeah, she had no idea, no clue.
I've been pregnant before, and I know that there's a lot of stories, and I don't doubt people that genuinely don't know they're pregnant, so I'm not making fun of anybody that doesn't know that. But the way I am, oh my gosh, I knew I was pregnant. So people that don't know, I'm just like, I don't even fathom that. But she didn't know. She had no idea, and she thought the baby was stillborn. She didn't know that it was alive when she hucked it out the window. But see, even if your child is deceased when it's born, if it's stillborn, why huck it out the window? Wrap it up in a blanket and go bury it? She threw her live baby out the window. And I guess during the trial, they decided she wasn't guilty and claimed that she was insane, more or less, and they admitted her to a hospital for psychiatric treatment. Yeah, well, I would think so. Hucking your baby out the window just doesn't seem like alive or dead. Right. So, a couple other notable people. I don't know if you've ever heard of the gal named the Black Dahlia. She was an actress back at that time, and I wrote it down. Wasn't her name Elizabeth Short? Yes. So, she wasn't actually killed in the hotel, but her death was very sensationalized because she was found in a park very, very close to the Cecil Hotel. And people say that they had seen her at the hotel just hours before she had died. So no one knows if her killer was there, and maybe the only connection to the Black Dahlia was that she went there to have a drink and then left, and who knows what happened. But her death was very sensationalized for a couple of reasons. One, it's still unsolved. Two, it was very, very gruesome. Very similar to Jack the Ripper deaths. Yes, it was very much a Jack the Ripper-ish type of death. That's one we can actually get into more detail. We have that on our list of possible topics, is the Black Dahlia. Right, so we won't go into it too much now, but that was a very notable one. So I quoted that wrong on the man with the shoes. It was I was wrong about the impact. It was what you said. They determined his shoes would have fallen off while he was falling. Oh yeah, well yeah. I just know that his shoes were still on, and the police said if he had jumped, his shoes would have fallen off. But impact sounds good to me. I think so. We can go with impact. It's one of the two. His shoes were on. They shouldn't have been. I have no preference. So a couple other real notable fellows. Two serial killers actually lived there. The first was Richard Ramirez, which you probably know better as the Night Stalker, and so he would have been more like the 1985-ish era. And you know what? I think it was 85, 86, somewhere in there. He terrorized, and I think he ended up murdering a total of 13 people while he was living at the Cecil. Yeah, and here's the interesting thing, and people just, people people are interesting. Good, bad, weird. He, like Tim said, that he lived there. He would go out and kill people. He'd get all bloody. He'd walk back to the hotel. He'd take his bloody clothes off, throw them in the dumpster. He would walk through the hotel lobby naked, oftentimes, and no one batted an eye. That was kind of the just how everything was going down in that part of town, that people were like, oh, hey, a naked bloody guy. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, with Skid Row being right there, like you said, it was not unusual or uncommon for half-naked junkies to just be walking around in the hotel.
Yeah, see,
so no one batted an eye.
They're like, oh, hey, look, he's naked again. Whatever. So, yeah, that's not weird at all.
I have a hard time looking at this guy's picture. Like, there's
He looks creepy.
The energy that comes off of this man is just bad. And I started watching an interview that someone was doing with him while he was in prison, and just how calm and collected he was in his responses. He even asked him, he's like, did you kill those 13 people? And he's like, that would be irresponsible for me to answer that question because of the appeals I have going on. Next question. Yeah. And they asked him if he was evil, and his response was, well, everybody's evil. It just depends on how evil you are. Like, it just the tone of his voice, his mannerisms, it just didn't seem right. Like, I mean, I guess if you watch any of those shows that where they interview serial killers, they're all the same. They all seem to lack that empathy. They don't seem to really care or feel bad about what they did. And this man is just
one of the many.
It just very creepy. Just the few minutes of that interview I watched, I couldn't watch anymore just because just the vibes I got from this guy
were creepy. Now, Chad, you were watching one.
Same one, I think.
Was it the same one?
Because
I didn't start watching this when I was doing something else, and you changed it like within 10 or 15 minutes. You're like, I don't even like that one.
Yeah, I wanted to learn about the Cecil, and this was a part of that. But when I say it gave me the creeps, you could tell that he was evil, and you could tell that. And what I didn't like about it was how the news thing here was sensationalizing it, and he was making this as a that it's about him, and it was sensationalizing it, and I didn't want to be sensationalize what he had done, so I turned it off.
The media sensationalizes things.
Yeah, wow,
oh,
you're crazy.
Never would have guessed.
Yeah, no, he's like, just a little bit I watched, he seemed very proud of himself. I mean, he declared himself a Satanist, and that he was, I don't know what his reasoning behind him doing what he did, but like I said, he didn't seem to show normal emotions, any remorse. Like, it was creepy.
Yeah. So let's move on. So, on that happy note, there was one other serial killer that called the Cecil his...
Is that the Australian dude?
Yeah. So his name was Jack Unterweger. He was Australian, even though that sounds... Austrian?
Austrian. Yeah, he's from Austria.
I was going to say, it sounds like a German name, but Austria would make sense, because they're kind of close. He actually picked the Cecil Hotel because Richard Ramirez lived there. Now, when you look at his picture, he doesn't look creepy, though. He looks like just the dude next door. But he liked to kill prostitutes.
He looked like from the little bit of clips that I saw, he looked just like any or the other normal, like, businessman.
Well, I thought he was from Australia, because Austria and Australia look the same, but he kind of... excuse me. He kind of has a Crocodile Dundee-ish look. Like maybe a younger Crocodile Dundee.
I can see that. But yeah, he was there on business. He was a journalist, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think he was there doing a story. I don't know if it was on Ramirez or...
I would need to go back and look at this, but I think... Because this kind of stood out. I think he was doing a story on people that killed prostitutes, but yet he was killing prostitutes himself. I could have that a little wrong, but that's kind of what I vaguely remember. Because I remember thinking, well, that's kind of ironic.
It's really getting into the research for your work.
Right, and this would have been about 91, so just, not too much longer after Ramirez.
Yeah, it was only like 5 or 6 years later. It wasn't...
Yeah, kind of in the same time area.
And when the video I was watching, the guy basically said the odds of 2 serial killers being in the same place within years of each other, it's very rare, because I believe in the U.S. alone, the police say that there's maybe 25 to 37 active serial killers in the States at one time, out of the millions and millions of people that live in the U.S. So the odds of 2 of them being in the same place aren't very good.
No. So, Yeah, a lot of people said that they think the Cecil Hotel is cursed, just because of everything that goes on, and with everything that has gone on there, I'm surprised. It seems pretty legit. So it says they kind of closed it down as a hotel, because it's not, the economy's not very good. There's a lot of stuff going on. So they closed it down for a while, and then they turned it, and I think it was at the time that these serial killers were there, they actually turned it into single resident occupancy housing. So it wasn't so much a hotel as, it was, but it's like more like you'd go live there. It wasn't a, hey, let's stay the night and go see Disneyland tomorrow and then go home. It was, more long-term type of a thing. And then in 2007, the owners decided to kind of reinvest in it, and they turned it more into a hostel, hoping to get more of a touristy vibe, because LA in that certain area was starting to clean up a little bit. And people started to see ghosts there.
I can only imagine why.
I know, just no reason.
With all the tragedy and deaths that went on there, it's reasonable that people would see or experience paranormal activity.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at my notes, and we've covered slitting people's throats, poisoning, but a man shot himself. It's just
jumping to your death.
Right, but the most recent thing, before we can talk about some of the ghost stuff, is
there's been a couple unsolved cases. Well, before we get into that one, just real quick, there was a local woman that was staying at the Cecil. Her name was Goldie Osgood, and she was actually found dead in her room, and her room had been ransacked. They say that she had been raped before she suffered a fatal stabbing and beating. There was one suspect that they had found walking with bloodstained clothing nearby, but he was later cleared of her killing and was never convicted.
They never did find out.
there's the Black Dahlia was one of them. They, like you said, they thought she might have stayed there or gotten a drink there. No one's ever actually been able to confirm that.
Right.
It could have been a bar nearby. It could have been someone that looked like her. They have no idea, but she was found near the hotel.
The area,
so,
yes.
But the more famous one that you were alluding to, and this is because of this case, I was made aware of the Cecil. I didn't know it existed until I found this case. Actually, when I first joined the team, 6.5 years ago, or 6 years ago, whenever it was, is when I first found out about this case. And the weird thing was when I found out about it, it was actually on the anniversary of her death.
Oh, wow.
It was because I believe she died in January 28th, and it was, I think, the 29th, the very next day, when the story just popped up on my Facebook feed, or however the hell I found it. But I just thought it was very fascinating that I was made aware of this particular story on the anniversary of her death.
That's kind of crazy, and you wonder, what does this mean? Yeah, and so when this happened, and we'll tell you what happened if you haven't heard of it yet, but this was when it was in kind of a hostel mode, not hostile, but when it was like a hostel, and they'd cleaned it up, and a lot of young people were coming to stay there, to go to school or just to sightsee, and so this gal's name was
Alisa Lam.
There you go. So would you like to tell us? So this is kind of your part of the story.
So when I first found out about this, I saw the video, because the video was maybe I was just browsing ghost videos on Facebook, and I found this. Or not Facebook, YouTube, the other popular thing. So the video shows her acting very strangely in the hotel's elevator. You watch her walk in and just mash all the buttons, light everything up, and then she kind of steps back a little bit, and then she steps forward a little bit and pokes her head out of the hotel, or out of the elevator real quick, and looks around, jumps back in the elevator.
Yeah, she looks like she's being chased or something, and she doesn't, it's not like, oh, hey, who's out there? It's kind of like, is it there? Is he there? I don't know what she's looking
kind
for.
Kind of paranoia.
A paranoid kind of a look. And you can find this on YouTube if you want to see this.
Oh, it's all over the place. Just YouTube Alisa Lam. It's ELISALAM. Alisa Lam.
Or the Cecil Hotel.
Or the Cecil Hotel. It's going to come up. I just Googled or searched Cecil Hotel, and it was like the third video in talking about what happened with her.
Because it's creepy.
There's a lot of controversy on this, on whether or not it was paranormal related or if it was a product of her mental state. Because she was suffering from mental health issues, and she was on a lot of antidepressants and some other medicines and stuff like that. But just watching the video, the first time I just got these really creepy vibes, and I actually posted it on our team's Facebook group page.
I remember that.
And I asked the Brandies what they thought about it, and both of them came back with that there was definitely an inhuman presence with her at the time of the video. And I truly believe that, just based on what I saw. The way she was acting, yes, it could be attributed to her mental health issues, but the thing that got me really creeped out is when she stepped off of the elevator and her hands started bending backwards in an unnatural way.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch that again.
If you watch it, there is a part where she's like doing some weird thing with her hands, but to me it looks like her fingers start bending back towards her wrist, which is not natural. That's not something that's supposed to happen. And everyone seems to kind of overlook that. And they say that she was just acting weird because of the medication that she was on, or that she forgot to take her medication or something like that.
She may have been possessed.
She might have been, or being manipulated or controlled.
Right.
But just kind of watching the video, one of the things that came to mind is when she stood back in the corner, elevators usually don't just stay open that long on their own unless you hit the button to make it stay open. So it kind of seemed like to me like she was kind of standing back away from the door enough after she started pressing all the buttons that the door should have closed. But it never did.
No, it stayed open for a long time.
I mean, even after she left, like she didn't even stay on the elevator. You see her on the video walking away, and it was still quite some time after she walked away before the elevator finally closed.
Yep.
To me, that was just very weird.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I watched these videos of people trying to explain it away using science, which I get it. That's what skeptics are going to do. And that's what we try to do. But when you look at facts like that, when you're looking at the bigger picture, not just the person's mental health state, you're going to notice things like that, like the elevator not closing right away, or her fingers bending in ways that they shouldn't bend. Like it just, there was just so much stuff in this video that just, it didn't sit right. It didn't feel right. And yeah, like I said, she did have mental health issues. When they finally found her body, they did a toxicology report and they found a lot of drugs in her system. Now, the one video just mentioned there's a lot of drugs in her system, which kind of makes sense. If you're on prescription medication,
right,
you're going to find that in your system. What they didn't find was anything other than what she'd been prescribed. There was no marijuana, no cocaine, no heroin, no meth, none of those.
So nothing that wasn't expected to be in there.
Yeah, pretty much everything that they found in the toxicology report is stuff that should have been there because she was on antidepressants and other medications.
So the interesting thing is how she was found. For a while, she was just missing. And the guests, after, a time, started complaining that their water was a funny color and that their water tasted funny. And so they went up on the roof and looked in the water towers on top of the roof, and they found her body there.
I mean, there was like a whole 2-week-long search for her. When she was from Canada, her parents had immigrated to Canada from Hong Kong, and she was feeling, I guess, lonely and stressed out with schoolwork and stuff. Like, she ended up dropping a couple of her classes because it was just too much for her to handle, and she felt like the best thing to do for her was to get away and just travel and see things and kind of more or less press the reset button. And that's exactly what she did. It ended up that, not so well for her. It didn't have the exact outcome that she had hoped, unfortunately. And she had started traveling and seeing California. She started in San Diego and then eventually made her way up to LA. And then she planned on going to, I can't remember what city was next, But she had it all planned out. Her parents knew about the whole thing. She was on the phone with them several times a day, like, hey, this is where I'm at, just checking in, letting you know I'm safe and whatnot. And I believe at one point they said she'd reported her phone missing. They still never found the phone. It's gone. So what happened was like she was set to check out, I think, on the 28th of January, and she never did. And she didn't call her parents like she had been, so her parents got concerned, rightfully so. You know, I'm sure you would do the same with your kids. If your kids are calling you several times a day, letting you know what their plans are for the day, where they're going, when they're going to be there, when they're going to call you next, like just constantly updating you several times throughout the day, and all of a sudden they just stop calling, you're going to be concerned.
Right. It's like, where'd you go?
So they launched a full-on investigation. The police were posting flyers of her, pictures of her on the news, and posting flyers all over the city, trying to alert the people of the situation and see if anyone found her, especially since I don't think the police knew it at the time that she had the mental health issues. Her parents apparently failed to reveal that information to the cops, and I guess they got upset about it. I don't know if that really would have mattered. The fact that they're plastering her picture all over the place, trying to look for her, and no one could find her until, like you said, people were experiencing problems with their water tasting funny, smelling funny, looking funny, like it was black.
Right. And I have to tell you, because, and it's a terrible situation. So, you know, don't mistake this, but part of me thought, you know, those poor people that were drinking that water, they actually did test it and they didn't find any harmful bacteria in the water, even though, I mean, it looked bad, it smelled bad for obvious reasons, which is tragic, but...
I believe all this happened in 2013.
Yes.
So it's fairly recent.
Yes. So, yeah, and the last death that we know of that I could find out about was in 2015. It was a man that committed suicide, and it didn't really give any other information about that.
You know, the fascinating thing I thought with Alisa Lam, and I know people have made other connections because they did some toxicology test or whatever it was called on her, called the Lam Alisa. It's just pure coincidence on that one. But the fact that they found her in the water tanks that were supposed to be sealed off on a roof that was alarmed. Basically, there should not have been a way for her to get into the tanks. I believe they found her without any clothes on in the water tank.
And they never did find her clothes.
They ruled it as the death as an accidental drowning, or an accident due to drowning. There was a lot of speculation on, you know, how she got up there without setting off the alarms, and how she got into the water tanks. And I did see another video that someone posted after the whole thing happened, and they recorded themselves walking up the stairs, going up onto the roof without any alarms going off. And you think at this point, like, if you're all over in the news about this stuff like this, you would take measures to fix the problem.
Yeah, so it didn't happen again, because you're always going to get that copycat person that wants attention.
But someone like legit was showing like how she could have done it, and I didn't see this video until recently. But from what I understood, all the tanks were sealed. There was no way in. Like, they had to cut the side of the tank to get her out. When the person showed how easy it was to just get on the roof and walk up, I mean, there was a ladder propped up on the side of one of the water tanks, and there was a small, like, shack that is right next to them that you can get on top of the shack and then get on top of the water tanks. And they showed that the lids on some of the tanks were open. So it was possible for her to get in there on her own. However, what we don't know is, did she do it because she was having some kind of mental breakdown? Or was she being coaxed and led by something paranormal? I don't know that we'll ever know. But to me, it's very fascinating. And just going off the video alone of her in the elevator, my personal opinion on the situation is that she was being influenced by something inhuman, and it was preying on the fact that she was alone. She was probably scared. You know, she had issues with depression and mental health, And that's the type of things that those entities prey on.
Right.
And they come after that and they attack that.
Yeah, because they know you're a little bit more vulnerable.
So it would have been extremely easy for something that could have been in that hotel, that could have been brought there by Ramirez or the other guy, Unterweger or whatever his name was. I can't remember.
Right. And then, we've talked a little bit here about the different stages of possession. And, it starts out, it's your friend, and it becomes your friend, and then it turns on you. It could have been, maybe they'd been working on her for quite a while, and it just got to the point where it turned. Yeah,
it could have been completely something that had followed her from Canada. We have no idea. But in my personal opinion, it was something inhuman that led her to her death. Yep. I can't prove that, but that's what I believe.
Right, and I have no reason to doubt you. So as far as paranormal activity, aside from that, guests have said that they felt cold spots. They've seen shadowy figures. If you go to YouTube and type in Cecil Hotel Ghost Outside Window, you'll see at least one, like a news clip. There's a young boy, he's probably 10 to 14-ish years old, who's kind of interested in the paranormal. And he took a picture of the Cecil Hotel, and the picture, it kind of looks like a ghost about ready to jump. People say that they have a feeling of being watched, and some people have claimed to see a woman that looks like the Black Dahlia wandering in the hallways. So, like I said, I believe it's closed for some renovations. I did see that when I was doing research. I didn't click to see when it was. We watched a YouTube video quite recently that there was a girl walking around, and they'd fixed it up, and it didn't look like the 1920s opulence, but it looked nice. I was expecting to see, that old tacky casino hallway carpet and peeling wallpaper, but it actually looked quite nice. And I don't know what time period that video was, but anyway, if you're interested in checking it out, maybe you could, if you're in that area, see if you could check it out. I'd like to go hunt there, but I don't know that... It's on my list. I don't know how we get in.
I'm not sure either, but it's definitely on my list of places that I want to check out. I mean, this place is, because of its history and the stories that go around with it, it actually spawned in that anthology series, American Horror Story. I believe it was season 5.
There's a whole season.
Yeah, season 5 called Hotel. The inspiration for that entire season was this hotel.
Right.
Yeah, it's just so crazy on all the different things that happened there.
Well, it's sad and interesting, that it was built to be this opulent destination place for, the wealthy and the movie stars and the rich. And, it just turned on a dime, literally, overnight, to be in the exact opposite. Skid Row, housing prostitutes and drug dealers and serial killers. And you just never know how life's going to swing on you sometimes.
In the words of Chad, it's an episode.
It's an episode.
It is.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network, found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.